It's a sad day in America when 8 police officers are shot in the line of duty, 4 of them fatally wounded in North Carolina. These acts of violence towards police officers are going to continue to happen if we don't fix the root of the problem. We're going to give you our perspective why we think these things are happening, and they're going to continue to happen across America if we don't fix it. This is the Shots Fired podcast. I'm Kyle Schoberg.
And I'm Mark Redlich. So let's dive deeper into the root cause of what is actually happening on this incident from North Carolina. We're not going to talk about the tactics and what happened on scene out of respect for the family. And quite frankly, we don't have all that information, and all that information is not coming out. So we're going to wait for a later time for that. What we want to focus on is the criminal justice system and why it's not working, and why the suspect was allowed to be released in this situation, which caused those 8 officers to be shot.
Yeah, I think the bigger problem here, and people aren't talking about it as much, is why did this happen in the first place? And here's the thing, okay, being in policing, we know that the criminal justice system is a complete failure, okay, in 2024. It's failed us. People in communities are absolutely feeling the ripple effect of our criminal justice system, the $0 bail reform, the criminal reform. We have governors that are completely shutting down prisons. They're shipping all these inmates back to county jails. The county jails are overfull. They need to push some of these people back out onto the streets. And we're giving people way too many opportunities to rehabilitate themselves when they have proven time and time again that they do not deserve to be out in public and in society. And case in point with the scumbag that shot these officers on Monday, and we're going to get into that. And quite frankly, it's irritating, and we've gotten to a point now where people are throwing their hands up and they're wondering, what is going on? And that's what I think this conversation needs to be about, and that's where are we holding these criminals accountable? Why are these people out of jail? And more importantly, why are they getting their hands on these types of guns that are being used against police officers? The issue isn't about banning guns or banning assault rifles, which we'll get into in the president made a statement about, turning this into a political thing, but it's about holding criminals accountable, keeping them locked up in jail, and prosecutors prosecuting crimes against these criminals when they are arrested time and time again. Before the show, you and I were talking about how criminals are being arrested, and oftentimes when cops were putting in this hard work to put these people behind bars, they're not even filing the charges on these offenders who are being charged with righteous crimes, violent crimes, people with guns, people in possession of drugs and guns together, all of those things, running from the police, high-speed chases. And a lot of times you get these rejection letters back from the district attorney's office that say, well, we're not going to prosecute these charges, whatever they may be, in the interest of justice. Well, what does that mean? Because quite frankly, if it's in the interest of justice, are you leaving that up to the district attorney? Are they determining that? Is the jury determining that? Is the community members out in the public do they get a weigh in on that? Where are they coming up with these, the ability to charge these people, and why aren't the district attorneys holding more of these violent offenders more accountable?
Yeah, you're clearly frustrated, and I am also pissed about this subject because it is really frustrating. And you hit on something that's a major point is the district attorneys, suspects are arrested. Officers do great work, dangerous work, get criminals, arrest them, write reports. The criminal is in jail. And then the report goes to the district attorney. The district attorney receives that report and then makes the determination, which quite frankly, we don't always understand how they make those determinations. But you're right. Oftentimes when suspects are not charged with a crime, it literally comes up as in the interest of justice. So if you run people's rap sheets, which we have done in law enforcement for criminal records, CI&I checks, it tells you what their charges are, if they've been convicted, how long they've served in prison or jail, probation. But oftentimes when you run rap sheets of people that have been arrested, it does show in the interest of justice. And you're right. It's very confusing because quite frankly, that's not in the interest of justice. In the interest of justice is someone that's been arrested, that's committed a crime against a citizen. That's not justice. That's frustrating. I hate seeing that. I'd like to have an actual explanation of what that actually means.
Yeah, I think this whole, they use COVID a lot of the times, and a lot of these news articles from this case that happened in North Carolina, they're saying, hey, because of COVID, the court system got bogged down with all these cases, which is true. We've experienced that here in California and the counties that we work in. So now it's like, Are these DAs trying to play catch up? Are they really being hyper picky about who are they going to prosecute, and how are they determining that? Like what is the threshold that they would consider a violent criminal? And we know that at least here in California and in other states, you're being let out of prison if you're considered a non-violent offender. Okay, here's the problem with that. We've now learned that doesn't work, because what that person might be in prison for now, which may be a non-violent crime, okay, they're not looking at that person's past history to show that they are actually a violent offender, and they continue to re-offend when they're out of prison. So just because they're locked up for something minor now doesn't mean that they're past. So that's what they're letting these people out of prison, is based on what they're incarcerated for now. And I see that just being an utter absolute failure. And we talked about the ripple effect that it plays on communities. I mean, looky here in California. I mean, we are plagued with homelessness and all sorts of drug issues, violence towards cops, violence towards other people. The communities are the ones that are really suffering as a result of this, because when these people are getting let out into society, there's no resources out there for them to help them either get jobs, provide housing for them. And a lot of times these people don't want those resources. I can't tell you how many people that we contact at work and offer them these resources that we do have, and they literally will tell you, I don't want them. I'd rather live out on the streets. I can use drugs. If I go into a program, or if I go into some housing program that's going to help me rehabilitate, they have to be sober. These people don't want to be sober. They want to be able to use drugs and alcohol, and they can only do that if they're living out on the street. So then the question is, where's the rehabilitation for these folks? Because we're just letting them out of jail.
Well, I don't think anybody has ever said, no. The criminal justice system is effective. The criminal justice system works. I've never heard that. You always hear from anybody that says the criminal justice system is broke. All kinds of different people, different places, residences, everyone seems to agree that the system is broke. Well, we know it's broke. We're in law enforcement. We see it firsthand. It's not working. But we talked about the root cause of this, and it goes back to accountability. And oftentimes it's referred to, and in this exact case, the president of the United States has come out and wants to ban assault weapons. He was quoted saying that, and a council member came out. This incident happened 2 days ago. Council member already came out and referred to the assault weapon as weapons of war. And she wants to band together a call to action to ban assault weapons. Now, there's a lot of different elements in this entire conversation that we're talking about, but the root cause is accountability. Touching just quickly on the weapons portion, this person that had this gun was already prohibited. They were not allowed to have that. So banning that gun, would that actually have worked? Because he wasn't supposed to have it. He's already been banned. That portion shows it's ineffective. The accountability is this person or other criminals are not being prosecuted. And I think the attention needs to focus. And listen, the district attorney, the attorneys, the deputy district attorneys do great work. They often do that. I've worked with them. You've worked with them. They have a hard job. They do great work. They're most likely overworked. But where's the accountability? And I think that's the focus. And it's not negative saying that they're not good, they're not doing. We need to hold people that have been arrested accountable.
Yeah, I think so. Here's a quote from the president after the fact of North Carolina. He says, ending his statement, he says, now leaders in Congress need to step up so that we can ban assault weapons in high-capacity magazines, require safe storage of guns, and pass universal background checks and a national red flag law. Enough is enough. Okay, you just said it. The guy was already banned from owning firearms. How many people have you arrested or contacted who are convicted felons who are not supposed to own firearms, who have firearms?
Most people in my career that I arrested for a gun was not allowed to have a gun.
Okay.
Very, very few were legally able to own a gun, and the crimes that they're arrested for was not related to the gun. They just happened to have one.
So in my 17 years of law enforcement, going on 18 now, working out on the streets, violent crimes, all those things, very rarely do you actually come across a citizen who's legally allowed to own a firearm, who uses that firearm for bad intentions. Generally speaking, in my career, you are arresting folks who are in possession of a firearm who are not legally supposed to own a firearm, whether they were convicted of a felony or even some type of misdemeanor that would prohibit them from owning a firearm. That is the general consensus. And guess what, folks? When you do arrest these people and you ask them why do they have their firearm or where did they get their gun? They're not going to the gun store and buying their gun. They're getting these guns out on the street. You can go buy an assault rifle out on the street right now, no problem, anywhere in the country. That's where these people are getting their firearms. So when the president says, well, we need to ban them and that these are weapons of war, they're turning this into another political issue instead of really talking about the root cause, which is what we're talking about, is the criminal justice system and making that more successful than what it is now. Yeah, it's not the gun.
It is not. In this case, there's a no bail system because of COVID. Yes, it did happen. We need to adjust that. But this person showed that he was not capable of being a productive member of society, but he was released, which led to this. In this incident, because he was not held accountable, not held in jail for the crimes that he had already been arrested for, there's a major ripple effect of people that are affected by this. Not only did 4 officers lose their life, those families are forever changed. There's 4 additional officers that were shot. Their lives are changed. Their families have changed. Plus the officers that were on scene that have witnessed this, that are going to have a traumatic experience, are affected. The CSI that has to process all this, that's just in law enforcement. You have the citizens that were next door across the street that witnessed and heard all this. And then you have the citizens across this country that are experiencing this. It's not just law enforcement. There's all kinds of people that are affected by this, not holding people accountable. It comes down to me, the district attorney needs to hold people accountable.
Yeah, and for the judges that are letting some of these criminals out, and they're the ones that are determining, well, they don't feel that this person is either a flight risk, a threat to the public. They're given the authority to release these people out into public, hoping that they come back to court. So this guy, case in point, he's been arrested numerous times. So it says since the mid-2000s, he's been in and out of incarceration. He spent just under 2 years in a state correctional facility, so a prison system. So of all the times that this guy's been arrested for violent stuff, guns, burglaries, running from the cops, massive amounts of drugs, he's only spent less than 2 years incarcerated in an actual prison facility. That to me is alarming. And the fact that even after getting out of jail, it says that he had been arrested numerous times for eluding police officers, and at one point was arrested for possession of a felon in possession of a firearm, and was released from jail within a couple of hours of being booked. That's not hard to believe because we are seeing that all over the country. We're seeing it here where we work. You are booking these people for righteous felony crimes to include possession of a firearm or violence towards another person, and literally, by the time you fill out your paperwork, get that person through the jail, and you leave, they're being released. That is the problem. The fact that this guy was not locked up and had been given numerous opportunities and continued to show his behavior of reckless, dangerous, violent, eluding cops, that is the person that needs to stay locked up in jail. And stuff like this would not happen.
And this is tragedy. And it breaks my heart to know this because this isn't an isolated incident. This isn't a one-time thing. This has happened across the country. This year, 55 police officers have died in the line of duty. 20 are by gunfire. 20 have been murdered by a gun this year. Most of those incidents, those people were prohibited from owning those weapons. That doesn't even count the citizens that have been killed, or homes been broken into, or cars been stolen, or identities been stolen, identity theft, businesses items being stolen from businesses. This affects everything, the accountability.
I think cops are tired. I think they're tired of this. We're tired of hearing about these things happening. And they're going to continue to happen if we stay on the path that we're on right now. But more importantly, I think community members and people out in public, I think they're sick and tired of it too. And people are starting to wake up a little bit and realize what is going on over the past few years since we've concepted all of this. People are sick and tired of it because you're right. You can't even go into certain cities here in California without going to the gas station or a grocery store without getting your cars broken into. You literally have photos and videos in San Francisco where people are going to grocery stores, leaving their doors wide open and their trunks open so that they don't get their windows smashed so people don't break into their car. And they're basically showing the criminal, I have nothing in my car. Please don't smash my windows because it's, $500 to $1,000 per window to fix. That is sad and pathetic that we are now in a place in society where you have to go to the store and leave your windows and doors wide open, hoping that someone doesn't break into your car. How do we get there?
The In-N-Out Burger, it's a hamburger joint in Oakland, it closed because of the amount of car burglaries in the burger joint parking lot. Literally closed. There's videos. I mean, I've seen them on YouTube, countless videos of people sitting in there eating food, videotaping these people pulling up, breaking into cars and driving away.
Yeah.
Accountability. Where's the accountability for this? It comes down to bail, whatever that is. I don't have an exact measurement. And to be honest, it's a big discussion of the amounts and can you or should you not. But they're not being held accountable for what? In the interest of justice.
Well, so here in California, at least, even for a violent crime, your bail amount might be a $0 bail. So if you were to get booked in jail and it's a $0 bail, you're just out the back door immediately with a promise to appear, it's a written piece of paper that says you are promising to come back on your court date. Well, the dirtbag in North Carolina who shot and killed those 4 officers and wounded the 4 others was given that same promise to appear, and guess what? He skipped out on all of his court dates. So, yeah, I guess the main question is where do we draw the line in the sand and say, okay, the president's right, enough is enough, but your focus shouldn't be on the low hanging fruit and blaming it on the weapon. No, let's blame the individual behind the weapon and rally behind that versus telling people you're required to have a safe in your house if you're going to own a gun. And if you are going to own a gun, you're not allowed to buy a particular style of gun because you, Joe Citizen, who are probably law-abiding, aren't responsible enough. And instead of telling the criminals and holding even those who are targeting these people who are selling these firearms to convicted felons, those people need to be gone after and sought the absolute utmost maximum penalties as well, because those people know by furnishing these firearms out on the streets to these convicted felons who are then using them to murder or shoot other people, to include cops, you should be held absolutely liable for that as well.
I think our podcast, you and I, Kyle, we really focus on making officers safety, providing information for the public, being transparent, and we do a really good job. And as part of our mission is being neutral and providing real information. But also what we really focus on is critical thinking. And in this situation, it's critical thinking. It's easy for an immediate response to come back and attack a gun or attack the tactic or a situation. But critically thinking, we tried to figure out what the root cause is. And believe us, we've spent a lot of time talking about this. It really just comes down to accountability and the focus.
So here we got some inside knowledge from an individual in North Carolina who will remain anonymous, who has direct information from people on scene regarding this situation that occurred on Monday. And I want to just say this. We were informed that the officers did try to do a surround and call out and were there for about 45 minutes around that time, trying to call this individual out of the house. One officer ends up climbing over a back fence, trying to maybe get access into the backyard to set up containment on this house. 45 minutes is a long time for someone not to come out. You got to obviously start thinking barricade and all that. He ends up getting shot through the second story window of the suspect's house. The suspect was deep inside the house. They've put that out on the news. That caused a ripple effect of other officers trying to then go rescue that officer that got shot, which caused the number 2 man to get shot, and then the number 3 man to get shot, who also tried to render aid to those officers that were shot. The sad thing is we know that when you have a task force like that with multiple officers from different agencies assigned to it, they operate on different channels. Not everybody's able to communicate with everybody, especially the jurisdiction that you're in, right? Because especially a federal task force like that, they're all over the place. So it sounds like maybe some communication, there were some communication issues. And unfortunately, the patrol cops that responded to help those officers who were putting out shots fired were fired upon immediately. And, ultimately one of them was fatally wounded. That's a little bit of behind the scenes knowledge that we know that an anonymous source told us, more will come from that of what exactly happened in the timeline that this happened. There will be body cam footage of all this. And I think, like you had mentioned earlier, we need to wait until all of that comes out to do a thorough analysis of how the situation was actually handled. I think a lot is going to be learned from it. And I think there should be stuff learned from these types of things, right? So obviously this individual was planning this attack, knowing that cops were probably going to come looking for him. Again, he'd eluded officers before. He knew that he was being sought after. They had multiple felony warrants against him. That's why they were there in the first place. He obviously had this set up in my mind. It sounds like he had multiple firearms, multiple magazines, and a lot of ammunition. That is ludicrous. That is exactly why things like this are happening across America towards police officers, and they're going to continue to happen if we don't start holding these criminals accountable and locking them up in jail. Period.
Well, this whole podcast this is a frustrating one because, quite frankly, 8 officers were shot. There's a major ripple effect. There's a lot that's going to come from it. We're going to continue to get more information. We really wanted to focus on what we believe the root cause to be. And that, again, comes back to the justice system. So our hearts go out to the families, the loss of the loved ones, and anybody that was involved in that scene or on scene, or those that are still out there processing that have had to see this or collect evidence. It is very traumatic. Our hearts go out to everyone.
Yeah, and let's just say the names of the officers that were shot and killed. Joshua Ayers from Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department, Samuel Poloche, North Carolina Department of Adult Corrections, William Alden Elliott, North Carolina Department of Adult Corrections, and Thomas Weeks, a United States Department of Justice, State Marshals Division. So again, our hearts go out to the families. And again, we don't want to continue to see this happen, but I feel like it is if we don't start, if these legislators, lawmakers, judges, DAs, everybody needs to start getting on board with this. Open your eyes to the bigger picture and start holding these criminals accountable and stop letting them out of jail.
I think I'm going to end with, please be safe out there and be smart.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. We will see you on the next episode.